Hi, I'm Deanna Joe, and welcome to my channel, Responsible Faith. Today I just wanted to share an experience I had when I was younger with being put in a position where I had to be a whistleblower. And so the summer I graduated from high school, I was 17 years old. I was looking for a summer job. I grew up in a rural area, so there weren't a lot of jobs available, and I couldn't seem to find anything. And a religious ministry had built a new facility in our community, and one of their outreaches was a summer camp for kids. It was kind of special because it was for low-income families and for kids who were either in the system themselves, maybe through foster care, or whose parents were in the system through incarceration. And so it was kind of heavily subsidized and providing those kids an opportunity to go to summer camp, which they might not have normally had. So they came to our church. This was the church I had fled to when I was 17 after experiencing spiritual abuse in my former church. And they shared that they were having trouble finding volunteers for their very first summer. And they needed a cook and camp counselors. And time was running out. This was sort of getting close to the startup. Since I couldn't find a job, I thought it was a good way to do something valuable with my time that summer, and so I volunteered. And the camp was really small that first summer, and it went really well. The directors were great. My mom actually volunteered to be the cook because they couldn't find anybody, so she took her vacation time and worked there for about 3 weeks that summer. And I can just remember she served salad one of the days, and the kids were like super excited about the salad, tossed salad. And they ate it and they were looking for more, and Mom was shocked because kids normally aren't that into tossed salad. But I mean, these were kids who maybe weren't used to having fresh produce. You know, when you're a single mom or a low-income family, you do what you need to do to put food on the table. And a lot of times that is cheaper prepackaged foods. So the second summer, I was still battling my health. I hadn't gone off to school or anything yet, and I was working sporadically, so I had time. And they had new directors that summer, and again, they needed volunteers. And so I volunteered to be a camp counselor for the girls that summer as well. Camp ran longer that summer, and they always had trouble getting volunteers. And so I was kind of the only one from that first summer that ended up being involved in the camp the second year. By the third summer, they had fundraised and qualified for probably, I'm thinking, some government funding maybe, and had expanded the camp and built cabins, and they could handle more campers. And so it was a longer camp season that summer. They had also qualified for 2 student grants to pay the counselors, but nobody told me. And so I didn't find out about it until the positions were both already filled. And then I was asked to be the volunteer counselor. And that irked me a bit because I've been hoping to get a paying job that summer because I had school expenses coming up. And I qualified for the grant because I was attending post-secondary in the fall. Partway through the summer, they finally hired a couple to be the permanent facility directors, and so they came and joined the camp already in progress. Also, the lady who was supposed to cook for a few of the weeks backed out at the last minute, so they contacted my mom to see if she would come back and volunteer again. So again, she took some vacation time from work and went and volunteered for a portion of that summer to be the cook as well. And this new couple, who were supposed to be the directors, had apparently worked in children's ministry before. But they were not a good fit. They were weird, and not good weird. They were older, and they were odd, and I don't know, the man, he was brooding and kind of moody and loud and short-fused, and honestly, I'm not sure why they chose them. The only real thing that I could see they had going for them was availability. It got to the point where a few of the kids mentioned being scared of them. And I can remember the man, he got angry one time and grabbed one of the boys by the ear and when he was giving him a growl. And I remember him grabbing another boy by the scuff of the shirt. And I mean, these are like 7 and 8-year-old kids. He made me really uncomfortable. He seemed to be very easily irritated with the boys, but then very touchy-feely with the girls. I can also remember instances where he would kiss his wife on the lips in front of the kids and like put his hands behind her and squeeze her bum and kind of pull her into himself, like in front of everybody. I also remember one night after supper, he duct taped a female counselor who was in her mid-20s to a chair in the dining hall and was going to let the older boys smear food all over her face. And you've got to understand these kids weren't coming from typical backgrounds, okay? And my mom came out of that kitchen with fire in her eyes. And she was like, stop that. This is not happening. This is inappropriate. And it went over like a lead balloon, but she was 100% right. You know, we weren't dealing with a regular camp. This was a unique camp. I can remember that the male director, my friend, it was time for her to get her paycheck and he was playing keep away with the check and he wouldn't give it to her and holding it up. And then he went around behind her and slipped it in her back pocket of her shorts. I can remember him spraying the kids with the garden hose, and he grabbed one little girl. She was probably 7, maybe 8, and he shoved the hose down the front of her pants. I also recall him shoving papers up the shirt of one of the females. A few of the girls had told us they were uncomfortable around him, and we had a meeting in the cabin, us female counselors, and said, okay, this is what's going on. I've noticed this. What have you noticed? And so we ended up telling the girls that night that if they needed to go into the main building or to go any place, not to go alone, to come and get us. And so we watched those kids like a hawk for the rest of that summer. So many red flags, right? And when the summer ended, I was so happy to leave. That was not a good summer that year. And the 2 other female counselors and I filed a complaint with the organization. And we detailed everything we had seen. And just because we felt like they needed to know. And a month later, we each received a letter from the organization acknowledging that they'd received our complaint or our concerns and told us not to ever apply to work there again. So, yeah, that's what happens to whistleblowers, right? Even within the Christian community. If you inconvenience or displease leadership in any way, even if you're doing the right thing, I have found that you end up getting dealt with. And I've seen it time and time again. As far as the camp went, I think they were just sick and tired of trying to find a permanent director who was willing to live in the middle of nowhere and half starved to death. And they'd finally found one, and now thanks to our reports, they had to start from scratch again and start looking. And in reality, they should have been thankful. I hope they were thankful that we told them, because who knows what they might have avoided in the future. But to their credit, they did let the couple go. And if I remember correctly, they went on to work in another children's ministry at a church that was somewhat loosely connected with that ministry. And that's how it works. So that letter was my written thank you for volunteering for 3 summers while they were struggling to launch the camp. And it felt like a slap in the face to me and even to my mom. You know, we'd played a significant role in helping them out for the first few years when they were trying to launch the camp, back when nobody wanted to go there and volunteer. And they couldn't afford to pay anyone. You know, we had done it because we believed in what they were doing and we cared about the kids, but it ended up feeling like we were disposable once they were in a position where they were a bit more established. And, you know, I'd been there for 3 years. They knew me, and they had never had any trouble with me before. You wonder why people don't report things, even things that maybe directly affected them. This is it. You know, it's because many organizations don't care about people. You know, they might start out with the best of intentions, but then they get too big and money and jobs become a factor, and they end up just existing to perpetuate themselves. And the church is no different. I've had so many people confront me for pointing out abusive practices, and instead of acknowledging and addressing the abuse, they immediately go into defense mode and say, oh, not all churches are like that, or you just had an isolated experience, or, I've had some even just refuse to believe it and accuse me of being a liar, or whoever reported something of being a liar. And in many cases, saints have been trained to blindly support their churches and leadership, even if they know something's wrong. It's a subtle grooming, but it's common, that loyalty. Some of them spend so much time proclaiming their undying love for their organization, their heritage, their church, or their pastor that, sometimes you're left wondering, how do they feel about Jesus? Where does he fit in any of this? So when they're already in that mode of almost an idolatrous view of their group or their pastor or their church, pity help you if you point out an abusive situation. Now, are there good pastors and good churches? Well, of course there are. We all know that. I mean, that just goes without saying. But I've had multiple experiences with different churches, groups, organizations, and pastors, and I can tell you, corporate Christianity is a mess. I don't believe this is ever what it was intended to be. It's too big, too controlling, too top down. There's too much money involved, and there's too many leaders who have no accountability with their saints or even within their organizations. It has become a business. Too many religious organizations have become good old boys clubs where they protect their own. And I mean, you throw some nepotism in there and you had better believe they are not there to protect you. Many will not do the right thing unless they're backed into a corner and forced to act. Maybe some information goes public or charges are laid in a situation where a crime was committed. And even then, any action they take, it often seems like it has less to do with upholding what's right and good morally and more to do with damage control and preserving the organization's reputation. I know of situations where pastors have told victims of sexual abuse to keep it quiet so they wouldn't ruin their abuser's reputation, because apparently the victim's life meant nothing, nor did the life of any future victim. I've also heard of pastors telling a sexually abused kid not to tell because it will make the church look bad, and if the church looks bad, well, then people won't want to come to the church and get saved, and then they're going to burn in hell. There's a load of guilt to heap on a wounded child. So manipulative. Here's a thought. Maybe it would be refreshing for the community to watch the church deal honorably and swiftly with these situations. Maybe it would make us seem more trustworthy and honorable. Maybe like a safe place to send your kids to Sunday school. Maybe God would be pleased if we started to do the right thing. And maybe we should worry about pleasing him more than we are concerned with individual or group reputations. Do I regret reporting? No. I'm glad we did. It was the right thing to do. I mean, how could we not? It was a precautionary move. And I believe as Christians, it's our responsibility to do the right thing. Scripture supports it. Psalm 82, 2-4 is speaking to the judges of Israel who had become corrupt. And it says, "How long will you defend the unjust and show partiality to the wicked? Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked." God hates partiality and abuse. If you want to stand on the Lord's side, that was a big thing. Old people would testify years ago and say, "I just want to stand. I want to show myself on the Lord's side." You know what? If you want to stand and show yourself on the Lord's side, you just pull up alongside of the brokenhearted and abused. That's where Jesus is. And he supports justice in these situations, and so should we. Ephesians 2:10 says, For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Or one translation says, as our way of life. Good works as our way of life. 1 Timothy 5:10 is describing godly widows, and it says, having a reputation for good works. If she has brought up children, has shown hospitality, has washed the feet of the saints, has cared for the afflicted, and has devoted herself to every good work. 1 Peter 2:12, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God. Matthew 5:15, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. As believers, we're called to good works and to stand for what is right. And the secular community, they know what's right. They know what good works are. Honesty, helping the poor, protecting the innocent, showing love and compassion, and upholding justice. And that is what we need to be doing within the Christian community. And, sometimes it requires talking about things and dealing with things that make people uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, it's not an easy road. People don't always appreciate a whistleblower. When you stick your neck out, you better be prepared, because it might shock you who will grab an axe and take a swing. I support people who are brave enough to speak the truth, even when it irritates people in power. Because confronting impropriety now is the best way to prevent it in the future. And if we truly love people, that's exactly what we want to do. And I've been honored to have people like Debbie and Mary and the Henrys and others share their stories of abuse on my channel. And I have more I plan to share. And I really hope you'll stand with them, no matter how you might differ in beliefs and views, as well as standing with the people in your own life who have been wronged and who need love and support. It's not easy speaking the truth, especially when it involves taking on powerful people with entire congregations backing them up. And I've found that many saints don't want to hear anything negative. They're not interested in knowing if abuse is happening in their church, but they're very quick to lecture victims on the importance of forgiveness. So sanctimonious. I've had several downvotes, thumbs down, on the personal stories shared on this channel, and I keep joking that it's those mean apostolics who care more about their group than they do the fact that there are abusers who need to be dealt with and who have left a wake of casualties. It's like sometimes their blind defense of their groups has left them unable to feel any compassion. And here's the thing. Two things can be true at the same time. You can strongly hold your beliefs still. And you can think well of your group and be proud of your group. And still acknowledge any abuses within it. Take a firm stand for what's right and take appropriate action to bring justice and correction. You can do both of those at the same time. And as a Christian community with various opinions and views, let us do everything in our power to be a safe place for people. And in the unfortunate event of abuse, we are called to be a community where the brokenhearted and wounded can find love and support, not judgment and harshness. And let us, as the body of Christ Jesus, not bring dishonor to him as the head by allowing pride and partiality to govern our every move. I really believe that God will not be mocked. There will be a day of reckoning. And when that day comes, I intend to do everything in my power to be standing on the side of right, whatever the cost, and no matter how many enemies I make in the process. And I have to say, moral integrity is important, no matter what it costs you in the way of status or favor or opportunities. So that's my 2 cents on that. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a comment and hit the like button. And if you want YouTube to notify you when I post a new video, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell. And thanks for watching.